This day in sports history. It's October 17th, and on this day throughout sports history, we had Auburn putting up points in a hurry. Michigan State proved you cannot ever give up on a game. And the first guy to ever get busted for doping at the Olympics in a sport that you might find hard to believe. All that plus the earth shook in the Bay Area and a non-sports fun fact about Mount Everest on the way. Stick around, lots to talk about today and some really cool fun stuff on the way. Let's start with what happened on this day in 1987, when Auburn stunned Georgia Tech with a pair of touchdowns in what would seem to be a pretty small amount of time. Quick, what can you do in 24 seconds? Maybe make a sandwich if you had the bread, the meat, and the mayo ready to go. Maybe you could check out a couple of TikTok videos. Well, how about score a pair of touchdowns? Auburn was only down 10-7 when they got the ball on their own 9-yard line late in this ballgame. But the Auburn offense had not exactly been lighting things up that day. An anemic running attack averaging less than 2 yards a carry and less than 200 yards passing when they started their final drive. But the Tigers managed to march down the field and with less than 30 seconds left, finally gave the voice of the Tigers, Jim Fife, something to get excited about.
Berger sets up to throw. Oh my! Touchdown Auburn! Touchdown Auburn! Touchdown Auburn! Tillman at the baseline of the end zone. A bullet by Berger. Auburn goes ahead. Unbelievable! Tillman from Berger.
Translation for non-Auburn fans not fluent in Fife, quarterback Jeff Berger found Lawyer Tillman in the back of the end zone for the 4-yard touchdown pass, and the Tigers led 13-10. There was still a little time on the clock, and Georgia Tech, a team that was pretty run-heavy, needed to go to the air to find the game winner. Instead, Andre Bruce had another idea.
Strom sets up, throws, pass is deflected into the hands of Andre Bruce. Bruce at the 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, touchdown Auburn!
Bruce with the pick six to seal the deal, and the Auburn Tigers scored twice in the final 24 seconds to beat the Jackets 20-10. So that was pretty amazing, and it was nearly as amazing as what happened on this day in 2015 when the Michigan State Spartans pulled a win out of the ashes of a sure loss. This was the number 7 Spartans in Ann Arbor against the 12th-ranked Wolverines. For 59 minutes, 59 seconds, Michigan had never trailed in this ballgame. They scored first and built a 23-14 lead in the fourth quarter. The Spartans' L.J. Scott tightened things up a bit with a short TD plunge with 9 minutes left, but it stayed 23-21 into the final minute. With 10 seconds left, Michigan lined up to punt it away. They didn't need an 80-yard boomer like Blake O'Neill had earlier in the game. They just needed to get the football down the field. The Spartans didn't even have anybody deep. Barring a miracle, the Wolverines would be able to walk away with a W.
Tell your punter to one-step it. Don't take your normal steps. One-step it. Get it out. Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable.
This episode is brought to you by Stirling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Stirling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Stirling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Stirling Roastery a try at stirlingsoap.com. On this day in 1998, The Temple Owls pulled off one of the biggest upsets in college football. The 0-6 Owls were 36-point underdogs and playing on the road against number 14 Virginia Tech, who were undefeated in their 5 games so far. Both of these teams were members of the Big East at this point. Temple had gone winless in their previous 26 league games. Also, the Owls were a beat-up team. Both first and second-string quarterbacks were injured the prior week. The Owls had 11 guys play in this game that had not even put on a uniform 6 weeks earlier. First-year head coach Bobby Wallace said he had guys playing positions they'd never practiced before, and it sure did not look like things were going to go well for Temple early on. The Hokies led 17-0 midway through the second quarter, and they were threatening to punch another one in when they fumbled and the Owls recovered on their own 1-yard line. Temple went on a quick 99-yard drive to make it 17-7 at the half. Temple started to make the Hokie faithful uncomfortable with a long, sustained drive in the third quarter, capped by a Jason McKee 13-yard TD run to make it 17-14. Temple was playing with their third-string quarterback, freshman Devin Scott, in this one, but he played like an All-American in the second half. He hooked up with receiver Carlos Johnson for an 80-yard strike, and just like that, the Owls led 21-17. The Hokies fought back for another score to retake the lead, but the Owls also had some fight left in them. They picked off a pair of passes in the second half, and those were their first 2 picks of the year. And this is, again, week 7 of their schedule. Devin Scott led the Owls back down the field and punched one in from a couple of yards out, and Temple led once again 28-24 with 6 minutes left. Down 4 and needing a touchdown, Tech drove down the field and with 19 seconds left, faced a 4th and goal from the 5. But the Owls swarmed to the football and snuffed the run to secure an improbable win over the 14th-ranked Hokies. It was the first of only 2 wins for the Temple Owls on the year, but the 36-point underdogs had overcome a 17-point deficit to shake up the college football world. On this day in 1989, the well-worn sports phrase, "shook up the world," took on a literal meaning as the world actually shook prior to a World Series game. It was the Bay Area series between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. The A's had won the first 2 games at home, and the series moved across the Bay Bridge to San Francisco for Game 3. At 5:04 p.m. Pacific Time, ABC's Al Michaels and Tim McCarver were reviewing video highlights of the first 2 games when the earthquake hit. Here's the ABC television broadcast from that night.
Flash forward to the bottom of the 4th inning. Dave Parker barely, by inches, just misses a home run. Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
Tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
I don't know if we're on the air or not, and I'm not sure I care at this particular moment, but we are. Well, folks, that's the greatest open in the history of television, bar none. Yes, it certainly did. We're still here. We are still, as we can tell, on the air, and I guess you are hearing us, even though we have no picture and no return audio, and we will be back, we hope, from San Francisco in just a moment.
CBS Radio featured Jack Buck, Johnny Bench, and John Rooney. They were in a commercial break when the earthquake hit, but when they came back on air, Buck was able to add a little bit of levity to the situation.
Well, that was wild, wasn't it? Well, it really was, John, and still a few aftershocks have happened since that time. The whole building and right below us, the floor just started shaking. Jack Buck standing here right now, and he just figured he'd just go right down below. You weren't nervous at all, were you, Jack?
No, I picked a spot down below, and I just felt sorry for those people that I was coming down on, but I thought I'd be all right. And I must say about Johnny Bench, folks, if he moved like that when he was playing, he'd have never hit into a double play. I never saw anybody move that fast in my life.
63,000 were filing into the seats at Candlestick at the time. Some cheered after the initial quake, others were terrified. One umpire ran out from the locker room under the stadium in his underwear. Players in the locker room feared that they would be buried alive. The stadium suffered very little damage, and there were many who wondered why they weren't going to play the game. Well, the situation outside the stadium was a much different scene. The Cypress Street Viaduct collapsed, killing 42 people. Buildings and parking garages crumbled. In total, 67 people died, but the World Series game is actually credited with saving hundreds, if not thousands, of more lives. Without a game, thousands more would have been on the freeways heading home from work. Instead, they were either at Candlestick or had left work early to watch the game in a local bar. Commissioner Fay Vincent, who was in attendance, did not hesitate to call the game off and initially rescheduled it for the 22nd. Delays in restoring transmission links delayed it another 5 days. San Francisco's mayor wanted to delay the resumption of the series for a month, but Vincent said they couldn't wait that long. He put several major league cities on notice that they may end up hosting a World Series, but it did not come to that. On October 27th, Game 3 was played in San Francisco with Oakland winning 13-7. They would close out the series the next night for the 4-game sweep. That was the last time the A's franchise won the World Series. On this day in 1968, Sweden's Hans Gunnar Liljenwall became the first athlete to ever be disqualified from the Olympics for doping. All right, so this guy had to be some kind of weightlifter, right? He was doing some kind of anabolic steroids. That would not be the case. All right, so he must have been a sprinter, and he was doping to make himself faster. That would also be incorrect. Hans Gunnar Liljenwall was a pentathlete for the Swedish team. Pentathlon is an odd bag of 5 different events. There's fencing, swimming, equestrian, shooting, and running. Well, it seems that Hans was a little nervous prior to the shooting event, and according to him, drank 2 beers to calm his nerves. Even though beer was not on the banned list of substances, Liljenwall was disqualified, as were his Swedish pentathlete teammates. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. The first calculated height of Mount Everest was actually intentionally misreported. When Sir Edmund Wall calculated the height, it was 29,000 feet, but he actually thought that people would think it was rounded off and therefore not accurate at all. So, ironically, he added 2 feet to his total to make it 29,002 feet. That actually did turn out to be closer to what most consider the height of Everest to be now, at 29,029 feet. That's all I've got for you today. I'll have more on tomorrow's edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.